coach's lens, guys. And tonight we're going to go a little bit deeper than tactics boards, lineups, or one result, because for me, football has become a cult. Well, maybe not becomes, always has been a cult. And I don't mean that as a lazy, dramatic line. I mean it like properly, okay? I mean, football had its own tribes, its own language, its own rules, its own villains, its own heroes, and its own version of the truth, right? People don't just support clubs, they attach identity to them. They defend players, they love long after the football has even gone, right? Because I could ask any of you about who's your favourite player. It's not, or it's never going to be a current one. You're going to have older ones as well. They reject players. They don't like, even when the evidence is right in front of them, the manager becomes a prophet or a fraud, depending on which side you sit on. And once people pick a side, very few ever move from that side. And that, to me, is cult behavior, okay? Because in football, people don't just watch, they belong. You know, you don't jump from one team to another, you stick. You don't really change your opinions, you stick. Once you've made your mind up, you stick with it. They inherit loyalties, they repeat narratives, they protect their own. They attack at outsiders, you know, scousers. And sometimes the badge, the player, the idea of becoming bigger than what is actually happening on the pitch. So tonight, I want to break that down properly, okay? Why do fans believe what they believe? Why do football debates become so emotional so quickly? Why do certain players, managers, and styles get defended like religion, basically? And why does support stop being support and start becoming blind loyalty? Get involved in the chat big time tonight, because this is, remember, Coach's Voice is my take on mainly your opinions, okay? But I'll just lead the narrative and you guys do the talking. This one is not just about Manchester United. It can be about whatever. This is about all of us as a whole. This is about football culture itself, okay? And I'll start with this. Football is the only thing in a lot of people's lives that gives them an identity, a belonging, and war without actual war, okay? And that is why it matters so much. So tell me, very first thing, tell me what is the most cultural thing about football to you. Okay, guys? Get in the chat or the comments if you're watching this back and let me know what that means to you. Okay? So, straight off, let's first welcome Bilal. First one in there. Okay. Grace likes a current player. Yeah, that's very true. I'll speak to people who have written off Kobe at 21. Exactly. That's exactly the kind of behavior we're talking about tonight, Bilal. But for me, one of the main things that is most, I don't know, cult-like, it doesn't matter who you are. We predominantly watching this are all United fans, okay? But first and foremost, we are football fans. And that is our religion, okay? We know Saturday, 3:00, we know what we're doing with our lives. We could be anywhere else, but our mind is at Old Trafford or whatever ground Manchester United are playing at, whatever team you're following on that day. And it becomes your lifeblood. You got 7 days in the week, right? And it all comes down to That's Saturday afternoon kickoff. And that doesn't mean it has to be your team. That could be you playing. That could be um, your kid. That could be you when you were a kid. Maybe you've fallen out of love. Maybe football helps bring you back. But it is a cult because cult is a very strong word. Okay. When we think of cults, we think of serial killers. That's the first thing in my mind when you use the word cult. But we think of drastic action. Okay. And that one thing that is the be all and end all, which for me, I don't mind saying it. Football is that thing. I have my family, I have my kids, they're here. Football is probably here, just underneath it. Okay. We're all in cults, whether we like it or not. Exactly, Bilal. Exactly. Cult is a misused word. Now, a lot of you who have got to know me know about other stuff that I'm into, about ancient history and things like that. But cult is a very, very strong word. Um, funny enough, my other half said exactly the same thing. Make sure you spell that word right. Um, hey, Sean, we all are. We all are. And that's the kind of thing I'm talking about because there is nothing wrong with being petty, being spiteful, fighting for what you believe in, right? Because that's what brings the passion. That's what sometimes when we're watching a game of football, we ask the players to do that they don't, okay? Because they're just turning up, doing a job, taking a wage. And that's sometimes where the disconnect can feel. One of the most tribal places I know on planet Earth is Turkey. When you look at football there, they could be there 5, 6, 7 hours before kickoff, and they're already filled the ground singing. They shut down cities, they shut down everything. That it is the be all and end all. We all know about Galatasaray, Fenerbahce, places like Welcome to Hell. Yeah, it is what it is, and it's okay to use these kind of words, strong words. Um, Leeds fan tried to get me to take a photo of them and their flag in front of a Trinity statue. Told them to, to f off. That's hilarious, Sean. That is absolutely hilarious because that's the kind of thing. I don't know. How could I relate? That's like going to Jerusalem and asking, yeah, we won't go into that, but if you know, you know where I'm going with that. You just wouldn't do it. You know, that's like going to the pyramids or something and you know, being Greenpeace and against sound or you know, this is a horror and going save the rainforest. You know, that's complete opposite of what should be done. Um, I mouthed F off in older City fan. Yeah, Sean. Welcome, Danny. Welcome. And guys, that's the kind of thing I want. So chat away to yourselves there. But like I say, think of those sort of tribal takes. So a lot of us have, if you're playing any sport, not football, we have things that we believe we will do before we do start a game. Okay, superstitions being the word used, but when does a superstition become part of your being, your who you are as a person? Okay, now if I was to talk about cult football, you only support one team. You will not accept someone's from outside of that fan group's opinion. Sean's just clearly identified that with not allowing a photo to be taken of an away fan outside of Old Trafford in front of a Manchester United statue, right? trying to be funny. You know, who you defend it, do or die. You know, you've got your own narratives. You'll always spin the United way. Okay, you will. I don't know. I'm trying to think of the right words, guys. Remember, I want to use the right words where I don't sound like I'm preaching to you now, right? It's us. It's them. A reason to belong. A reason to fight for something emotionally. You know, that's sort of tribal identity. It's like a religion without it being religious. Okay, stadiums are like cathedrals. Match days are ritual. You park here, you walk to here, you buy your food from here, your program from here, you go into the ground from here, you sit in that seat. There was no different. Whether it be shirts, whether it be scarves, the chants, seats are like symbols of belonging, right? You have your seat, especially if you're a season ticket holder. That's where I sit. That's where I sing. That's where I see. That is my point of view of what goes on in the Theatre of Dreams. And fans pass clubs down through generations like faith. Now we all know what it's like if someone tries buys your newborn or like 1 year old, 2 year old a shirt for another club. My God, I've seen it done. People think it's funny. And I've seen some diehard fans absolutely lose it because their other half, normally it's the other half's dad, trying to push their club on their their grandchild. But a line a lot of people choose when it comes to football clubs is they inherit them like a religion. Okay. And I can't think of a more cultural way of putting it. If you think your narratives become sort of an indoctrination into that lifestyle, he always gives 100% because he's untouchable. He's not a United player because impossible to recover from X, Y, or Z, right? The manager needs time, or the manager is a fraud, or board fraud is the most recent. Because, it's a fixed religion. It's the United DNA. That's not how we do things here. So these are all very, very cult-like. And like I say, cult is a scary word. It's a powerful word. There's a reason I picked it. And you guys in the chat are literally unreal because I know you understand that, and that's why you're here. And that's why you've not gone, oh my God, it's so clickbait. What's he talking about? Right, let's just have a quick catch-up while I was saying that, see what people think. Right, who we got? Bilal, Danny, Sean. And that was after we spoke for 5 minutes about young German players. They were German fans. Yeah. I blur my background when I meet virtually with clients. I do not blur it for a client who supports Liverpool. Oh, I'm going to try not to laugh. You can hear I'm obviously not that well. Sean, I absolutely love that. And that's exactly the kind of thing I'm thinking. Because there's certain times you will let it be known where you're from, who you support, who you are. Players are priests. Close enough. I would say if you wanted to go from a religious point, you would say players are more like disciples. The club is the priest, the players are the disciples, and then we are the followers of those disciples. Manchester United have abused us many times, but we enjoy the pain. That sounds more like dominatrix there, Bilal. Father-in-law tries to buy your kid a rival's shirt. Nah, I'd say thanks for the toilet paper. Exactly, you put them down. But Sean, you know I'm right in what I've said there. and how often that happens, or you'll see videos online, or someone will make a joke about it or something like that. It's not uncommon, and it's sort of one of those things. Now, in the UK, we get a lot of a certain religion, and people think it's funny when they knock at your door to keep them there talking about something and question them about their own religion, whether they have a faith or don't have a faith. It's it. I see that very similar to buying another kit and rubbing it in their face. Should it be done? No, but there's some kind of little enjoyment about doing it. I have a friend who supports Liverpool. I randomly send him Virgil van Dijk, Dick, and Mo Salah memes. Yeah, exactly that. Just randomly, I saw this. I know where that's going, and that's what I mean. It's something that you don't give a second thought to, right? Now, if I was to mention players becoming symbols, right? Not footballers. I think that's probably the most cultural fit place to start. Growing up, you guys as fans would have had your favourite players. You would have had your father, brother, whatever, grandfather, someone up behind you will talk about their favourite players. And as we said, teams tend to stay in the family. Now, growing up, Brian Robson was literally an unbelievable footballer. Was highly spoke about by a lot of teams. Now, my granddad was a Sheffield Wednesday fan. Never once pushed it on me because he knew I was a United fan. So this is why I have quite probably a different take on this kind of thing. My stepdad was a United fan. My brother, therefore, was a United fan. He's 7 years older. His favourite player, I think, growing up was probably like a Les Searley, or it would have been a goalkeeper because my brother was a goalkeeper, which therefore led me to following players. But my first favourite player, I ever remember going, oh my God, and eyes widen. And you then don't hear a bad word said about him. You've got posters all over your thing. You literally are praying to the posters. I want to be like this guy, was Mark Hughes. And mine went pretty much like this. Mark Hughes, Eric Cantona, Peter Schmeichel, pretty much simultaneously. And then we get into, I would say, David Beckham from Cantona through my teenage years, with Cristiano Ronaldo. And then I don't support players because you start realising as you get older and you get into football that meeting your idols isn't always what it's cracked up to be, without going into that, into too much detail on that. JJ Will played under 18s player of the year, by the way. Yeah, I know he did. And so he should do. I'm not sure that's correct. I wouldn't be surprised with it, but it's one of those things really where we come into this cult sort of mentality, right? Right now, when I'm talking about players, that's a perfect way to put it in, Sean. Because right now, when I'm saying who was your favourite player growing up, your first favourite player, was it someone in your family's favourite player that you took on because you thought that's how it was, and then you find your own? I think mine was. I can remember Mark Hughes, side volley, white Man United kit. I think it was the Barcelona game. I'm not even 100% sure, but it was that where I went, oh my God, he scored. He's flying through the air, sideways on, right? That's how I see it. But funny enough, we get preached to about JJ Gabriel right now. Find me a Man United channel that doesn't imply or almost demand that JJ is in Man United's first team squad next season, because you'll find it very hard to do that. Now, I know currently everyone in our chat watches the under 18s, watches the 21s. Now, if JJ is not old enough to play for the first team, is a well-known fact, He's also not old enough to play for the 21s in PL2. So there is no way someone should be skipping out on parts of their career. And Man United have very rarely ever done that. So JJ will be in the 18s next year. He will be playing for the 21s, but he will still have time to train with the first team, like pretty much every other player from those age groups. And if he does well enough, he earns a chance to be invited back when we're not low on numbers. And others have had that happen this year, but it's very, it's not spoken about enough. Okay. And that's a cult thing, because now we're looking for our next idol, right? We're looking for our next god to, he will lead us to, greatness because he is JJ. It's not true. We should never put that on him. It's literally, when I'm talking about cults, if you will, about false prophets, idolism, things like that, it's a perfect example. Bilal says he's 29. CR7 was mine. But Bilal, who in your house was the player you were always sort of heard about? So when you got into football, who was the player to look up to? Was it CR7, or was there someone before that? Because, like I say, for me, I grew up with my brother having pictures of Les Searley. I can remember the United goalie top Adidas, obviously with the T-Fall logo on it, bright green, white collar. But I can't really picture Seeley's face, and I can't really picture the other goalkeeper whose name escapes me, but it would have been there. R9. Perfect example, R9, because he was a god and someone who should have been idolized if you were into football, because he was one of the ones that came before the Messis, the Ronaldos. Jarvis, perfect timing for this kind of cultural explanations about football tonight. We're just saying, now, obviously, I know your idol is Maradona, but growing up, who was the player spoken about that was the god of football in your house before you found Maradona, before you find Manchester United? Or even if it was you've grown up through Manchester United through your house, who was that one player? Not the biggest football family. And that is what we call perfect explanations, okay? You're not all born. I want to stay away from actual religion and actual cultism in that respect. But in some aspects, we will refer back to it. There are many forms of out religion, but you're not always born into it, because otherwise there wouldn't be a saying of I found God, or I found Buddhism, I found Hinduism. I found, yeah? You went looking, you found something that agreed with you, or someone who agreed with you, and you now follow it, not necessarily blindly. And that's where the difference between cult and religion is in football, okay? Football, we follow blindly. Once you're in, you're in. There is no one else. Unless you can stay level-headed, okay? Which is sort of how I see myself. That's not being big-headed, but I can appreciate Man City's football. I don't like them as a club, but I can agree that Pep is one of the greatest coaches, and what he done is amazing. Liverpool, of course, I don't fucking like Liverpool, but they're bin dippers. They're happy to find a rat and have a snack, yeah. But Jurgen Klopp, Bill Shankly, iconic. Okay, you can't give the respect to a Sir Alex Ferguson without respecting other people and dynasties that they build, because that's what we would hold our, or the number one manager ever in Sir Alex Ferguson. That's what we would hold him up against, right? And that's cultural. That's what we're talking about. So we do that same thing with players. You will have that argument for days. Who is better, Ronaldo or Messi? Who is the most iconic player of the Premier League ever? I'm going to go Eric Cantona. Someone's going to go Steven Gerrard, or Frank Lampard, Didier Drogba, Thierry Henry, and we're never going to agree on it. Like the debate, pick two central midfielders for the for a 4-4-2 or a 4-3-3 for the all-time greatest Premier League. Straight away, Roy Keane, Patrick Vieira, Frank Lampard, Steven Gerrard, Paul Scholes. Same 5 names are always going to come up. Depending who you are, you're not going to agree. So that is cultural, okay? But it's also the perfect way of explaining narratives. It's the perfect way of explaining a tribal identity, because you're never going to say a bad thing against. You can understand where they're coming from, but whether you're just being polite and allowing someone else to put anyone next to Roy Keane and Paul Scholes as the best midfield duo in the Premier League. I sometimes say Brian Robson played 1 year in the Premier League, therefore he can be the greatest midfielder of the Premier League era. It's not true, because he hasn't done it long enough, but he's still the greatest midfielder. Managers, cult heroes, or heretics, right? And we've certainly had many of them. You can't hold Sir Alex Ferguson to a level which is off the scale and then go, well, what are we now? 15, 20 years, different managers, never hitting the same standards, but always saying that, well, that's the level. That's Man United. That's what we hold it to. But he hasn't always been there. No, he hasn't. But when he came, he saw, he conquered, right? Great, Sean. I really hoped you would be in the chat tonight. Social psychologists would have a field day with generational football fans in a family. Exactly that. Psychological warfare sometimes is probably a really good way to talk about a match preview, a debate between two fans, right? Especially when we watch it back on something like YouTube or Talk Sport or something like that. We say things to wind them up, so they look bad, we look good. Programs like The Overlap, when they have everyone there, that's why they're so good, because it's almost like, what are you talking about? Your team's this, your team's that. We're this. You're not. The top 6. They might as well be the Olympian gods, right? Compared to just mere mortals. I love that, Sean. I love that psychologist. That you're so right. They would have a field day. Managers are not just coaches now, right? They become idealists. Well, Pep is a perfect example of that. Fans don't just back them, they convert to them, okay? When I hear about someone like a De Zerbi and the way he plays football, we talk about him as, yeah, but he does it different. He has his way of playing. It's the way, when we talk about him, we talk about them as them, not him. It's not a name. It's a style of play. He will bring us this. He will do that. Sir Alex Ferguson ruled the roost. Did we talk about style of play? Not really. We talked about man management. We talked about a guy that knew everything and anything about his players, where they were at any one time. People were scared of him. They would be, oh, did you know? Did you know this? Did you know this? I saw so-and-so doing this shopping. Oh my God, he bought 2 cucumbers instead of 1. He knew everything, right? But then you move on into modern times, social media, which was Sean bringing up psychologists. You move on to the different psyches of players, like where coaching now becomes a mindset. But you're almost, Jack Grealish is a perfect example of cultural coaching. You take a player who was at the time maybe one of the greatest up and coming talents in football. Pick the ball up, could go left, could go right. Very George Best-esque, shall we say. because let's be fair, Jack Grealish, George Best, there's a lot of likenesses between them in more ways than one. And Pep wouldn't allow that. No, if you come to play for Man City, you do it this way. You think this way. And then next thing you know, your mind is losing that freedom. You are being brainwashed into, right, I'm going to go here. And if I get to here, I've got to make that pass. But if I've made that pass, I've got to stand here. That is, that is a cult. Man City is a cult in Pep Guardiola. You go in, we believe everything they do. And like religions, like cultural behaviors, we looked at what he'd done, went, oh my God, that's so successful. We've got to do the same. And next thing you know, all the way down to low-level football, even park football, they're trying to play football out with the goalkeeper at the back, press high, win the ball back, turn it over, rotate the ball from left to right, round the back line, creating angles, hold on. Keep the ball rather than individual skills. It's about the passing. It's about the tactics. And you're like, well, we're not all Pep Guardiola, but his way of football became the way until Jurgen Klopp came in and challenged it, which you could almost say was, if you know your history, very much the Crusades. Yeah. No, you don't have to do it that way. Follow us. Catholic versus Christianity. Pep versus Klopp. Tactical, keep the ball, or heavy metal football that is basically just a new way of saying counter attack. Run as far as you can, as hard as you can, for as long as you can. So, football players, football managers, football fans, we are as cult-like as you can get. Fergie literally kicked them down the door at a house party to find Lee Sharp. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. And I think Ryan Giggs was with him at that party as well. If it's the same one that we're talking about, Klopp wasn't a tactical genius. No, but what he did, he went, this is how we're going to play. Are you with me? Will you follow me? Leeds. Liverpool. Follow me as a person. And they did that. I'm not going to do it because I don't want that sort of too much of that vibe going through the show. But you can go back through biblical texts, Moses, the Emerald Tablets about ancient Samaria, all these people where the stories are, there was this person, they followed them to do this. He was told to do that. You either believed and you followed, or you stayed there and potentially died. That's what Liverpool was, right? You either went with Klopp or he got rid of you. Because if you didn't, he saw that was the only way of saving that club. And we can't really doubt what Klopp thought, because he went on to turn Liverpool around, right? Much to our dismay. Right now, you can't tell me, if you want Michael Carrick, you're not hoping he knows how to follow in Alex Ferguson's footsteps, because he played under him, because he followed whatever Ferguson said religiously. Okay. God, rolling my letters tonight, guys, is an absolute nightmare with this cold. So I do apologise if I have to repeat myself, or some of my words sound slurred. I've just got such a sore throat, right? There's been so many of you watching tonight. There you go. It's starting to go. Please make sure you're hitting that subscribe button. Please make sure you're giving the video a thumbs up, because we are on the road to 150 for this month, and we want to push for that 500. Okay. I think at this point, we need to take it a step back to what I mean by cultural behavior. Okay. Belonging over truth. Okay. I this is quite a deep thing for me, guys. So I'm sorry if I ignore the chat for a minute. It's not something I speak about, but it's something that all men should speak about. For me, try not to get emotional here. Football is the only release for my mental health. Okay, football is my safe place. I know whatever I have going on, I could find 90 minutes to let that all go and be somewhere else. Whether it be watching Manchester United on the phone, being at the Church of Old Trafford, playing myself, coaching myself, just to allow that to go, right? It is a belonging. It is right here. I feel something. I feel part of something. I feel that this is who I am for 90 minutes. And we all have our struggles from day to day. And that is what football gives me. It gives me that outlet. It gives me that release, that sort of deep breath. I don't know what football gives you, and I'm not asking you to tell me and go that deep, but I will share my deepness with you. And it's not something I normally do, and it's not something I will continuously do throughout my shows. But when we're talking about belonging over truth, this is one of the strongest points for the whole topic, I believe. A lot of football arguments are not about being right. They're just about protecting where you belong. And that's huge in my eyes, right? We see something on social media. If it's got a Man United badge, 9 times out of 10, we're giving it a love heart. We'll share it. If we see someone having a pop at our club, depending on your characteristics as a human, will be whether you reply to it through social media, but you will certainly think about that reply. It's whether, I'll be honest, whether you have the bollocks to say it back to someone because you don't want the back and forth. And that's okay, right? Because what I will always say about social media, keyboard warriors are always out there. I welcome them. It doesn't bother me. I've got thick enough skin when it comes to football. As long as you don't make it personal, say what you want, and I'll just take it as your viewpoint. But when we are fans and we find our happy place in football, we don't need constant reinforcement, clip culture, fan channels, tribal dog pile-ons. Opinion becomes a brand, right? We are a brand. Sean in the chat is a brand. Most of you watching back going, who's he referring to as Sean? I'm talking about Sean from United versus everybody. He has a name. He's not just a channel. He's a human being who has beliefs. My name's Mark. Football is my release from life. But you're potentially only know me as United lens, or that guy who can never decide whether he wants a beard or doesn't want a beard. Jarvis, who's in the chat or been in and out of the chat tonight. Who's Jarvis? Well, Jarvis is Tactical Devils. You'll see Trevor talk about Stu and his man Keeney. He's talking about Stu from Tactical Devils. This is about us building relationships within our church of Manchester United and having somewhere to support yourself and speak about your beliefs. So when I talk about my struggles with mental health, football is my place to go relieve that. It doesn't mean I'm a raving lunatic and I could be sectioned. No, it's who you are. And that is a cultural decision we make and somewhere we decide to be comfortable. But that is a cult. Yeah. Guys, I'm glad you totally agree. Sean, Jarvis, I love that. Thank you. Thank you for support. But words are often misused, misrepresented. Yeah. Like I said right at the very start, when I use the word cult, people think of religious cults. Work off of my. There we go. We are back. I'm hoping. Don't know what happened there, guys, but I seem to have dropped out. Watch back the video, you'll see what I said. Um, yes, it did freeze. It seemed like it was a YouTube thing or my streaming service thing there. So I do apologise, but hey, the camera kept rolling, so it'll be an interesting watch back. Um, what are we creating if a great community across channels? I always do my part. I'm creating an environment of collaboration and support, and that's it. But we, Jarvis, between different channels, exactly that, Jarvis. Um, we collab, but we have different takes, and that's okay, right? I see football through the United lens. Uh, Jarvis sees his take on football, but he will have his Norwegian views, which can be a different belief in his Norwegian mannerisms to how he sees football. Sean, he's American, and he have his own culture there, but he's still a Manchester United fan, and that's what makes us so amazing as a fan base, right? Because we bring so much to the table when it comes to supporting each other and supporting our club. But inherited loyalty, like I was saying before you all missed it, um, we're born into it, we're raised into it, and then we're shaped by it. So as a kid, you you could support any team. You just love football, right? You want to go out there, you want to play, you just want to run around with a ball at your feet. Jarvis, you coach, Sean coaches, I coach. I've done kids. I don't care what shirt they turn up on. It's training in. 9 times out of 10, they will wear their club shirt, but then they want an Inter Miami kit or they want a Saudi kit because it's got Ronaldo or Messi on it. I was the same as a kid. I think I had AC Milan, Ajax, Barcelona, Real Madrid, obviously, but Man United was I had every kit, right? Because that was my blood. But I love football, so I had a Rivaldo shirt, I had a Roberto Carlos shirt, I had an R9 shirt, I had a Maldini shirt, Van Basten shirt. I was lucky, but I don't know. Maybe from an early age, it was known that I just love footballers and what they did. Sean, I'll just leave that up on there. Jarvis, such fun getting to meet up with Stu at Hotel Football before the Wolves match. Exactly what we build over this, we can bring together, and we can bring that together with you guys when we're at games. How I met Adam outside of Old Trafford from FUTV, or at that time he was still doing United Stand, and he got me into vlogging and doing things, and he got me into YouTube, coming onto his shows, and then that led me down a path that led me through different aspects to where I am now, having my own channel, featuring on Jarvis's channel, For me, it's something I never thought I would do. I thought my opinion didn't matter, but everyone's opinion matters, and that's how I always felt. Why does my opinion not matter when I hear someone like Mark Goldbridge talking a load of bullshit, who clearly has never played a football at a decent level and doesn't understand football, but he still has his beliefs in Manchester United. Whether you want to believe he's a Forest fan or a United fan, that I don't give a shit about. He's bringing United content. He's a United fan. Whether it be Beth, her on the United stand, whether it be Saeed, whether it be God, United People's TV, it doesn't matter. What's that say? False. Scousers and Gooners' opinions don't matter. They do matter because they still shape ours. Because let's be fair, we all love to laugh at them. Scousers, they are die-hard football fans at the end of it. They're die-hard fans of whatever they believe in. So, and I can respect that. I can't respect their club, but I can respect them as a type of people. And don't forget, we have Scouse United fans. So, Shay Lacey. We have Gunners who, come on, what the hell? They're constantly smoking crack or something in what they believe, but they believe it. And I have definitely come across United fans who are like that as well. Player protection is a prime example. Some players can play so bad for weeks and they still get defended because people are defending the version of that player that they fell in love with. Bruno Fernandes. Why people sometimes think I hate Bruno Fernandes. This season, Bruno's up here. Go back 4 or 5 seasons. He's been around here. He's been meh. When he got made captain, I'm not sure it was the right call. I'm not sure he was playing well enough, but always available. That's a leadership quality. The only ability you need is availability. Manager wars. You can be standing in the crowd at Old Trafford, screaming and shouting with your takes, singing for Carrick. Well, hang on. 6 months ago, we were singing for Amarin. 2 years before that, we were singing for Ten Hag. So you believe until you no longer believe, right? But what hasn't changed? What is the underlying cultural nature there? The football club. If they're at the club, we back them. All the time you're here, you'll back them. And I love that. I am glad we have the opportunity, fans, and different opinions. Football would be a boring game without it. Well, if we all supported one team, opinions wouldn't matter, right? So you are right, Jarvis. Without other people's opinions, you can't shape a debate, but you can't be proven right. You can't be proven wrong. You can't celebrate a win and you can't mourn a loss. And that's why we all hate draws. Because when there's a draw, it's like, fuck's sake, no one's won that argument. Next time, I'll get you next time. And that's sport. That's sport across the thing. Rivalry is great and you can welcome it, but we don't need to take it to the level, like I say, like Turkey, like the Fenerbahces, like the ultras trying to make their way up the staircase at was it Slavia Prague at the West Ham game where their fan was stood at the top defending the families of the players because ultras were trying to say, "Oh, this is our club. We're going to beat you up." That's a different kettle of fish, but that is a main cultural behaviour. That's do or die. And maybe that's going back more towards the cults of serial killers. But and we'll stay away from that aspect unless people want to bring it up. Sometimes we believe in this, right? Over the evidence. A prime example is old fidget spinner under Ten Hag. The evidence says, "Oh God, get rid of him." Blah blah blah. He's crap. He's so left-footed. But we don't talk about Ahmad in that way at the moment but we will talk about Anthony. But yet, if you actually go back as a coach and say, I have a left-footed player on the right, he can't use his right foot apart from to stand on. If he needs to cross the ball, he's going to need to cut back onto that foot. We don't hold every player to the same standard, generally, as a club, because we believe in the badge and we believe in what narrative is driven. And, I talk a lot about United Lens being a opinion-based, channel. Your opinion matters because I'm not going to go with media bias. I am not going to go with 5 shows a bloody day talking about absolute bullshit transfer deals or this player. You must think this of this player, like we were just talking about JJ, because it's weird. It is really, really weird for how we don't judge 2 players the same. I have said throughout this season about Rasmus and Sesko, there is very slight differences between these 2 players. As a whole, age, profiling, the same. Build, very similar. A little bit more height. Are they both out-and-out goal scorers? No, they are different players. Do we create for them? No, not for either. So therefore, are they being fairly judged? No, because if you don't give them the ball, you can't really see what they do. One player in one game might get 10 passes into the box, and then the next game he might only get 1. That's not a fair comparison, is it? You can't say he's had a good game 1 and not the other if you don't give him the ball. Centre-backs, Harry Maguire. Look at Harry Maguire. Look how we were ready to go to war to get Harry Maguire out of the club all the time he was captain, and how he fell off the cliff under that pressure. Yet, weeks ago, we're celebrating Harry Maguire signing a new contract because we took the armband off him. He got his confidence back. Did we judge him to the same standard all the way through? Because he's still the same human being. No. Why? Because of cultural behaviour. Listening to what other people's opinions are, driving narratives, driving stories. Sometimes stats lie. We don't know who they are as a person. So we can have these conversations and we can find out. Well, don't forget, it could be down to this. It could be X, Y, or Z. You can watch multiple channels. Not one channel is right. I could talk about one aspect of football, any one aspect of football, and you could put me up against 5 other top channels. Now, I'm not saying I'm a top channel. Would I love to do that? Absolutely. Do I think I could compete on shows against a Goldbridge, an Adam, a Saeed? I'm sorry, I can never remember the name of the host from United TV. Absolutely, because what I've learned as a coach is the way I see football, and I see footballers and people. So that's where I step away from the cultural behaviour and I just see football. Whereas a lot of you guys, and I'm going to be a little bit critical here, I'm pretty sure your views are dictated to you by who you watch. Maybe I'm a breath of fresh air sometimes when you watch me thinking, bloody hell, I did think that, but someone's finally actually said it. So it is what it is. What's this from Jarvis? I might see Lemon Kamara is linked to Newcastle now. It might leave an opening to get us Tonali. Maybe. Well, they got a link a midfielder if Tonali's looking to go, and they got to turn around to a player and say, hey, we've got someone lined up, mate. So if you want to go, we'll just sign him. Okay, yeah? And that's how the media works, as well as the football club. You don't have blind loyalty, right? Until you do. It's weird. It's weird. And that's why I'm talking about the culture. What question to you guys, right? Big question to you guys. Do you think in modern football, players support the fans? Oh, Now the camera's going. Great. The internet's really playing up tonight. Do players support the player? Sorry. It's me trying to fix a camera issue at the same time. Are we supporting the club or are we supporting the players in 2026? Not you as a person, but as a fan base. While I quickly sort this camera. There we go. And I'm back. And I realise what it is now. I've not got my light on. Because one of the things I would put to you guys is I see it now all the time, that I feel the football club is so much further below the players. And I'm not talking about player power, but that is the most common term used. But I think in the rise of fandom over Ronaldo and Messi, I wonder how many people have grown up with someone like Messi and have worn a Barcelona shirt, a PSG shirt, and an Inter Miami shirt. And the same with Ronaldo. Now, I am going to be honest, as I always am. I said earlier, one of my players growing up and looking up to was David Beckham, right? Because as a teenager, the heartthrob, the hair, we've all seen them. If you're in the UK, there's an advert at the moment where everyone runs their hand through their hair and stuff, the curtains. It was iconic. It was an iconic moment. But he's the only player that I've ever had two shirts with his name on. I had a Real Madrid one and I had a Man United one. But after that point, I stopped getting names on the back of my shirts. Because at the end of the day, I support the team. Players come, players go. That's football, right? Your player's never going to stay one age and be at the top of their game. He's always going to end up being replaced. You're always going to have a new name to sing from the stands, so to speak. Trevor's in the house. Evening, Trevor. So Jarvis says, at my age, I support the club. However, I understand the younger fans support the players. Okay. Right, Danny's talking about that. I support the club first, Trevor says. The players come and go. Exactly. I am. Trevor, I don't hide it, actually. I am partial Real Madrid fan. United are playing Madrid. There's only one outcome. I want United to win. But spending so much time as a kid, growing up with those white shirts on, crappy TVs in Spain, red and blue didn't do it for me. The stripes, I didn't think it looked good, but the white shirts just looked amazing. There's just something about a white kit. I've always bought the Man United white kits, an all white kit. There's just something sexy about it, unless it's got a Spurs badge, right? Even Swansea's kits looks good, but I can't be doing it with the Spurs, and that's more because my best mate Dean is a Spurs fan. So, Mark, what are your thoughts on the Premier League 2 playoff final? I understand you follow Brighton closely. Can United win it? Yeah, absolutely. Brighton can win it. Sorry, United can win it. But I think it's wrong. I'm unless something has come out tonight that I haven't seen, to be playing within 24 hours of the FA Youth Cup final is ridiculous. I think the way things have been done regarding tickets, Man City can't sell their tickets. And we're talking about a 7,000 seater stadium, yet 68,000 at Old Trafford last year for the FA Cup final. It's mad to think that United can win any game, but if they're going to stick to doing it within 48 hours, the under 21s are going to have one hell of a. They'll be up against it. The 18s can win the FA Cup final with JJ up front with, I can't think what his name is, but they don't have to have Obi. And Obi can be rested and play 21s. But I'm trying to think who potentially would play in both. The Fletchers, Freights, people like that. Ajay, Shea Lacey. It'll be very hard for them to play 2 games in 2 days, and nor should they. Player welfare is meant to come into it. But it's funny how this would be a bit of a statement. It's funny how, as a coach, I have to adhere to the FA rules, but when it comes to the FA, they don't adhere to their own rules of player welfare. So that's pretty much all I can say on that, Jarvis. Right, just let me turn the light on quickly. There we go. I thought I looked a bit like duller in the video. Maybe that's why I've been having so many problems with the camera. I will always support individual players and follow their careers if they are my favourite, but they never come close to supporting my club. Trevor, I'm cut from the same cloth. I can have favourite players anywhere in the world and for any team, but Man United comes first and foremost, right? No one's bigger than the club. No players bigger than the club. No manager. No board member, right? I support the badge. I don't support anything else. You know, we are probably the most football phoenix, shall I say, that there ever has been. You know, we quite literally rose from the ashes, and people have always wanted to emulate us. Think about Chelsea's rise to the top. Chelsea took our guy, and basically he was tasked with, can you make us the new Man United? What do they do? And he went in. So absolutely. But when it comes to the modern age supporting players over the club, what do we do about it? What do we do about it? Because a lot of channels will do. I don't want this to sound like I'm digging other channels out. I'm trying to explain psychology, sort of what it does to the mindset of how we think. Okay, so I'm trying to pick my words carefully here, and it's also 11 o'clock at night. If you're an established channel and you want to make your money and YouTube is to become your day job, you're going to do 3 shows a day. There's only so much information you can put out. So what we end up doing is talking about players, and we talk what could be a 5-minute section for 30 minutes, okay, on one player. And we preach. We preach our take on that player. Now, if you go back to watching Tactical Devils last night, which obviously, if you're here, please go find Jarvis's channel, Tactical Devils, watch it back. It felt like a half-hour, 40-minute conversation about the right combination of players. And we were looking purely at what percentile and trying to cover a circle off would best suit Man United. There was no real names. We had to use the names to get them to tick it. But what we were looking for is, what is the best balanced combination, right? Whereas a lot of these channels would have to say, he's the perfect example. This is the guy we need. Go get that guy. Go get him, because they need to put out content. And because there's so many channels, but there's not so many different players, everyone pushes the same narrative. And then you maybe get someone who will go complete opposite because they don't want to be the same. So they deliberately go the other way. And that starts messing with people's mindsets. No, definitely should be this player. So I could say, for instance, someone I know in here is Danny, you will obviously one of my moderators. You will watch my shows. You will watch Tactical Devils. You will watch Sean. All three of us here tonight. Sean does a lot of scouting reports, and whether you realise it or not, he will help put names into your head that you will start thinking that is the right guy to go and get, right? And that's right, because I know Sean does his background checks, and he's covering all aspects of why. And they're weird and wonderful names. Why that person would suit, they're this, they cost less money, they're doing this. And then you'll bring that to Jarvis and you'll ask his take on it, or you'll ask my take on my channel. And we can have a proper footballing conversation. But a lot of the time, that doesn't happen. What's this? Tactical Devils. Isn't that an adult channel, Mark? And one of the hosts looks like Rick Astley, and the other and the other one has a mankini fetish. Yeah, but what about the third one that appears randomly from time to time? So yeah, it's that's what's the term? Ball knowledge, right? That's learning ball knowledge. Whereas with my channel, I like to always approach things from if I was playing. So when I do tactical breakdowns, I'm talking about the difference between being 5 yards apart, 10 yards apart, and 15 yards apart. And how it sounds like nothing. 15 to 5 yards difference is only 10, right? But how fast can you run 10 yards? Not quicker than the ball. That's a fact. You know, when the ball's in the air switch, you can be 10 yards away from a player on the opposite air because you can make that time up. But if you're 10 yards away from your player and the ball's played towards him, why are you pressing him? You know, that's all tactical. That's what I love to bring. I hope, I know sometimes I sound like I'm preaching, but I hope I sort of bring that knowledge to you guys and why certain players will be a better choice, because that's how they play. But that's where my cult view of Manchester United comes from, because I suppose my beliefs of football are Alex Ferguson's beliefs of football, because I grew up with him. Like, he's like a father figure to me, definitely in sport. He's probably a father figure to, I don't know, it would be hard to say, but 70-80% of Manchester United fans, because obviously we've got to have so many that weren't born when he was in his prime, or, you know, we all know of him. We can all watch videos, but you didn't watch the Sky Sports interviews. You didn't watch the Match of the Day interviews and things like that. And we all know of the Kevin Keegan having an outburst and the mind games, and that's one of the things I love about football, and I get that from him. And sometimes when I hear myself talk on here, I think I watch the Overlap, Roy Keane, or I watch the Paul Scholes podcast, and I think, bloody hell, I sound like Roy Keane at times. Oh my God, I sound like Nicky Butt. And then you think, well, Nicky Butt learnt from Roy Keane. Roy Keane came in under Alex Ferguson. That's the way Ferguson spoke. That's sort of how I see football. So have I been brainwashed? Of course I have. Of course I have. Football is a simple game. Pass and move. Sometimes it's overcomplicated when it doesn't need to be. Absolutely. Jay, evening Jay. Hello. Oh, Shay Charles scored tonight for Southampton, a player we been linked with. Don't know a lot about him. I know he scored a goal against Arsenal in the FA Cup. Well, Jay, I can tell you, Shay Childs was 2 weeks ago, I think it was, Jarvis. If you're still here, we done the show on Shay Childs on Tactical Devils on the Monday when you were asking questions about him. And I said about how he's out of the Man City academy, was taken to Southampton by Wilcox. And now it's probably Wilcox that's linking him to Manchester United. I don't think it's the right player, but he's certainly a good enough player, right? So yeah, we did quite a big thing on it. So maybe go back. It's definitely got him in the thumbnail on Tactical Devils. Right, let's get back to Colt. Football is an emotion organized into tribes. Do you agree with that? You know, football isn't a game, it's an emotion. Okay. Trevor just said it's a simple game. It's a simple game, but it's one of the most powerful emotions we have. I love this one. The shirt becomes bigger than the truth. Now, we've all been guilty of that. We've all been guilty of red tinted glasses, seeing something that wasn't true, but we're sticking to it. No, that is a penalty. It's not a penalty. You know, it's a dive. I've called Cunha out, if you remember, back against Palace for the dive. So, and how many times has he been booked now for diving this year? Just hold that one in the back of your heads for a different show, guys. Football arguments are rarely just football arguments. They become personal, right? It starts as him versus him, and then a them versus them, and then a us versus them, and it becomes a pile-on when we talk about social media and pile-ons. These kind of lines are so found out through history. They are, you could go back to the ancient Egyptians before the Bible was written and then follow that all back through different religions outside of that. He says this, she says that. Even your own work life, I guarantee you, you've said stuff you know not to be true just to defend your team, because that's what we do. Okay. Do managers become idolized now rather than just coaches? Are they just idols? Do we, as a fan base, know nothing about some of these managers and we just idolize them no matter what? Blind faith we're talking about. I would say yes. And I would say I was guilty of it. When Ten Hag came in, I was buzzing. I thought, this guy, Ajax through and through. We all look up to Ajax Academy. If you know football, you know Ajax Academy, Manchester United's Academy, Barcelona's Academy are three of the biggest in the world, right? And if someone's come through that, you're holding them in such high regard as a level of player. But times change, right? When was the last time we had a superstar striker? I said this the other night. Come through Man United's youth policy. It's Danny Welbeck or Makeda, depending which way you look at it. I think Welbeck done better after leaving us than he did for us. You know, Messi is the last, I think, great player, but they got Gavi and Pedri and people like that coming through. But before that, Iniesta, Xavi, you name it, it doesn't stop, does it? Ajax fell off a cliff, but I blindly, through my ball knowledge, backed a manager thinking he'll know what he's doing. He wouldn't have been at Ajax if he didn't. How many of you have done that? How many of you blindly back the manager without really knowing that much about him? We just go, it's that club. They're a good club. Therefore, he's a good manager. I would say, not necessarily you guys in the chat, because I know a little bit more about how you think and sort of how you see football from seeing you on different shows and also how you interact with myself. But you guys watching at home, watching this back, I would say more than 60% of us blindly follow a manager in. We all thought Amarim was going to be the next big thing because that's what we were told. He was on Man City's shortlist to replace Pep. Fuck me, if they're looking at him to replace Pep, he must be unreal manager, right? Didn't work. But we definitely blindly backed him. and his changes for a period of time, thinking he'll get it right eventually. He'll definitely get it right. Let's have a quick catch up here, seeing what you guys were saying. Um, yes, a couple of weeks ago. True, Trev. Too many tacticos overcomplicate football just to sound clever. Yeah, definitely. For me, if you really understand the game, you should be able to explain it simply. Yes, you need to be able to refer to something from my point of view as a coach. Everyone learns different. I have a starting 11, but I don't speak to the goalkeeper, the defenders, the midfielders, and the strikers in the same way. They have different mindsets. They're different people. They have different things that drive them. I remember speaking 2 seasons ago to Lewis. He asked me, "Oh, but I'm always on the bench." I went, "You're the most versatile player we have. I know you can go on and do anything, but when you're out there, you need to show us you deserve that shirt." That kid went on to be the player of the season because I knew I could talk to him, smart, going lad, good tactical brain, hence the reason he could play anywhere. Whereas if that was a striker, I, I might have been like, mate, you can't put the ball in the net. Until you start scoring goals, I'm going to play the one who's scoring goals. I'm sort of saying the same message, but in a different sort of aggression, um, demanding more of them. And you're right, Jarvis. If you can't simplify it, you probably don't know it. We all know about how showing the offside rule, right? With the ketchup and salt and pepper and things like that. When you know something, you should be able to show it no matter what and explain it no matter what. Danny says Eric Ten Hag failed before he even came through the door by not keeping Ragnick as his director recruiting, killed him. I think Ragnick that's not entirely true there because Ragnick sort of shot himself in the foot with the open heart surgery and being able to stay on in that role. So there was already going to be a disagreement there. But you are right. He shot himself in the foot, in my eyes, when he said, "We can't play like I did at Ajax." As Jarvis just said, if you're good enough, you should be able to explain it so everyone knows how to play it that way. As you know, we would give our right arm to play one game professionally. A lot of these snowflakes today are too pampered. That is why, as a fan, it hits us more when we lose, whereas players move on. Exactly. Exactly. There is the Ben White is the conversation now, isn't it? And he's the example of the conversation. Ben White is living the dream of, I would say, God knows, a very high percentage of males and an increasingly high percentage of females living their dream of playing football. You know, as Trevor has just said, we would do anything to just be a professional for one day. Live the life, train all day, play a game on the weekend. Don't care about, and would do it for free. Whereas Ben White does that, and he hates football. He hates what football's about. He hates what football's become. I have my views on Ben White. They're not for my channel. I won't say them. But I have utmost respect for someone who can stand there and go, "Do you know what? I come in, I do my job, and I go home. I don't watch football on TV. I don't do that." Do you know how hard that must be? And yet he's playing at the Premier League champions. That must be so hard to do. Because if he did enjoy and watch football all the time, he could probably be very high. Because his knowledge is only what he's coached. So he's not taking on any additional knowledge. So it's definitely possible. But he's the example I use when I explain the pampered footballer. You are so right. When we see now players don't go home and recover properly, they rather go launch a clothing brand or go off to this show, that show, be seen at the boxing, go off to New York instead of staying at home and recovering and resting and coming back to a game which you haven't got a game for 3 weeks with the most rest you could have got and still keeping yourself active at the same time. So I totally agree with that, Trev. Mark, do you find it hard to get a connection with a player or a manager in today's world as you know it? It's all about money for the majority. I don't know. I I feel that through training and everything, I can start to understand behaviors and mannerisms and who they are as a person. And I can see that in sometimes how they walk, sometimes how they turn up for training, the way they walk onto a pitch. I know that sounds so stupid, but the swagger, whether it's got the old shoulders going or, but managers are, they're all egotistical. Okay. I love being a coach. I don't think I would make a good manager. Um, not in today's game anyway. But as a coach, I just need to be your mate, and you need to respect me and do as I tell you, because I'll call you out if you don't, and we will always have that understanding. And I set that from the very first time they meet me. But you are right; it is about money. Money in football now is coming all the way down to what are we step. I think there's if you go throughout different areas, north and south. I think up north it goes down to about step 12. And I think in the south there's less leagues for what we call non-league football. We just call it park football. We don't give them a step number, but up north you tend to. But getting paid to play games, even I was not paid to pay, but I didn't have to pay. It's probably the best way I can put it. Even good night, Danny, mate. Thank you for popping in. I totally appreciate it as always. Hope you give the video a thumbs up on the way out, and if you can share the video that you've all been seeing. I was going to come on to it at the end. Obviously, the trailer for next year and next season. Please do get that out on your socials. I could do with as much sharing of that as possible. But yeah, I hope that answers your question, Trevor. Money ruins games. Like I say, if I got offered, I got a free pint if I scored a hat trick. Well, I was every game. That was my mindset, was to go out and score a hat trick. I got a free pint because one of our sponsors was a pub. I could walk in there, get a free pint. Great, you know. I didn't do it for the drink. I barely drink alcohol. I did when I was a player. Going out, it was part of the culture. But now I don't drink. I don't drink if I've got my kids or even my stepkids. So it's just who I am. But yeah, people get paid for playing on a bloody Saturday in a park. I kid you not. They do. So yeah. Let's stay on where are we at? We're an hour and a half into the show. Let's move it from the culture. Let's put a pin in that. The fact is, football is cult. We are cult. We are wearing our own United hats, be it whatever you want to call it. We are culturally the same. We're cut from the same cloth. Sorry, we bleed the same blood, and it's united in our veins, right? Some people are deeper in. Maybe call it the Illuminati or whatever. There's levels. How deep you are into that club. There are the die-hard tattoos all over them. Live, die, Man United. Wear the clothing. 8 days a week, and then there's levels below them. Okay, but football is a cult. And I would ask anyone who watches my channel to respect other cults, other clubs, for their opinions, and just maybe take on board more channels say without thinking any one channel is correct. Round off your thought process. The older we get, and you guys in the chat are going to know this, The older we get, the more knowledge we get, and the more we start to see that. So to the younger fans, no one person running a channel is correct. Okay. And that I include myself in that. I'm going to say things wrong. Bloody hell, I can barely pronounce some of the footballers' names in this day and age, right? It's, I have my take on the Glazers and Ineos. Do I think we need them out the club? Absolutely. But how are we still making the money we did if they have done entirely bad? I don't know. That's a question I can't actually answer. From a business point of view, we are still one of the best businesses in the world. But that's because of us as the fans, right? Because we live and die United. We buy the merchandise and we scream from the rafters week in, week out. So it is a cult. Be respectful of other clubs. But most importantly, be respectful of each other's opinions when you're on different chats, different shows, and have that knowledge and ask questions, especially on here. Ask questions. But I want to move on to what's coming. What is to come for this channel. You can see I'm using the old backdrop today. And if you've watched the last couple of shows, I've been using the newer ones. There is a lot to come. Released trailer 6 o'clock last night. Jarvis was nice enough to show it on his show, and then I got him a copyright strike because of the music. Whoops. But I have re-edited it. It is up and live again now with non-copyright music. I ask all of you to share it. It's on our community page. So just go to United Lens YouTube page, click the share option on the three dots, share it out on your socials. That would be amazing. Because there is a lot of changes to come. We've got Champions League, we've got FA Cup, we've got Carabao Cup, we've got 4 different types of shows like this, Coach's Lens, the scorecard. We've got previews, reviews, stats coming on into the live backgrounds. You name it, I'm going to try and bring it to you. So I was going to try and show it on here, but for some reason, it seems not to want to do it. And after what happened with Jarvis last night, I'm going to give it one last attempt, just so we can add it into this. We'll do it through the channel. The best way to do it. Right. If we click here, do that. With you guys, I will always ask the question. I will bring you the content you want. I am going to bring you Champions League previews. I am going to bring you the scorecards afterwards. I'm going to bring you the review shows afterwards. That's nigh on 6 shows a week out of 7 days. And I'm doing my day job. So all I ask from you is give it that. Give it the thumbs up. Give it the share the content out there and just help me educate other people. Right. So here it is. Well, I won't hit go yet on it. Let's add it. Let's share the screen. I'm pretty sure the sound should still come through. Where are we? Shorts. This is it. So if you haven't seen it, world premiere was on Jarvis's. There you go. So I want to talk to you guys about what is actually there. Okay. So in the background, each show is going to have its own unique backdrop. Each show is going to have previews, is going to have stats you need to know of what's coming up. Okay, the past results against that team, the FA Cup draw for FA Cup games, things which we all would expect of a preview, right? The post-match review shows are going to have our match stats. We're going to have XG, shots on goal, possession, league tables, what that means for us as a result, starting lineup on one side, on the others. But is there any specific things you want me to bring in? I need to know because I can change the backdrops to represent that. Champions League, you're going to have, obviously there's no longer league table, mini league table. It's one big table. So we're focused around where we are. We're focused about our opponents because half of them we probably won't know. On our 8 games that we have to play in our group phase. League Cup. Well, hopefully we go a lot further than we did this year. No, we'll look at aspects of that. So they're all going to have the unique colour coding. Obviously green League Cup, red for FA Cup. Champions League will be the Champions League colours, with the bright blue, the silver with the ball, the stars. We all know what Champions League is. We've all been dreaming of getting back there. So let me just see what you guys are saying. All right. Everything is about incentives, unfortunately. Yep, very true. Illuminati and United is something I never thought I would hear in a sentence together. Yeah, and then I came along, Trev. That's the magic word, Mark. We are a business first, football club second. Absolutely, we are. We are. But, there are benefits to that as well. There are absolute benefits to us being a business first and foremost over a football club. With the changes in FFP, if we're led to believe that the amount of money we make each year will be how much we can spend, up to 80% of that, well, we make the third most money over all teams. So we can spend a lot of money that will help us rebuild. It will put us into debt, and that's why I don't believe in those rules. But yeah, it's a big thing. Jarvis, Mark is barred from Tactical Devils after the strike. No worries, Mark. Didn't seem to affect the show. It's up to 1,700 views right now. Yeah, last night's show was unreal. To have 240 roughly carrying us through the entire show was mental, and it was a really good show. Out of nowhere, really. World premiere short, you say? Where is the Rock and Arnold Schwarzenegger? I might try and get them to do the voiceover for the ones coming through the summer. So there are more videos to come through the summer. There will be more talking, explaining it to everyone else. You guys know me. You know what to expect from this channel, and I want more input from you. But I do need to evolve the channel. You can see the difference in the logos. We will be losing wrong side. The standard red United lens with the TikTok, what do you call it? I was going to say QRC. It's not QRC. QR code. And we'll keep the logo up there because I need a watermark, because I've found recently, and it's only a compliment, and I'm not bothered by it. I found two channels that have copied me. When you search up United Lens, there's 2 other channels, and when you look at, one was created only last month, and one has changed the channel they were to us, but there's no content there. But I can't think what the saying is, but there was definitely about impersonation was like a form of respect or something like that. So I can only take the compliment from that. Maybe an idea for monthly shows about life as a United fan. Absolutely, Trev. But what I will say on that, I love the idea of that, but I need subscribers. I need people in the chat, because my take on a monthly Man United game is great. Having you, Jarvis, but if we don't have 10, 15, 20 people giving their views, it becomes a very one-sided conversation, and it becomes quite a quiet show. But those kind of shows, if you have the interaction, I mean, they can explode. And we know that. You see that from the way me, Stu, and Jarvis bounce off of each other when we're doing that kind of show. I've got no problems having other people on my show, because I appreciate their time and their views, and that means I don't have to be picky. They can have their own views, but I need people in the chat to ask the questions. So that's why we're now trying to grow the subscribership. And this month alone, we have been constantly shooting up. but I want to hit 150 by the end of this month. And I can only do that by every time someone's watching. Come on, get in the chat, join, subscribe, give the video likes. And those who are subscribing, putting the video out there on their socials. I'll tell you what, I was watching this last night. You know, Mark said this, and he was spot on. When you look back through my preview shows, I'm probably about 60, 70% right about what I've said, how the game will go. But like all of us, we ain't going to get the right lineup. We ain't going to get who's going to score the goals right every time. But we understand football. So it means you can have a good conversation. Other aspects of the game and the channel. This kind of show we're doing tonight. Obviously, Champions League weeks will drop out, and we'll have to go with preview Saturday for a weekend game, previews, reviews for midweek games. The more games we play, the less chance I have of these shows. So, Trevor, I really appreciate you want to have these shows because I love talking to you guys about your takes as well as my own. Instead of just, sometimes I feel like as a content creator or a YouTuber, I won't label myself that, but people say I am now. I think that's mental. But you feel like you preach, and that's not me. That if you want people that are going to preach and tell you what you should and shouldn't think, that is the higher level shows where they don't interact with nearly every chat that comes in the show. I start getting big and I've got 10,000 chats throughout a show. Obviously, I can't interact with all of them, but you know I'm looking because you can see my eyes and you can see what I'm looking at on the screen. So I'm seeing people's chats. I'm seeing people watching on X and other things that I might be doing at the same time. So just because I haven't said it doesn't mean I didn't see it. And I'm very well known for letting it drift the conversation away from what we were talking about. Hence the reason we're now on to this and less about cult football. So yes, maybe have a guest on every now and again with a view to a certain topic. Yeah, well, that's where previously I was on the Balls Out podcast. We'd have guests on, we'd have ex-footballers on, we'd have different fans on, depending who we were playing that week, and do shows around that. So you get to have your debates, you know, you build your perfect 11 between your Arsenal and your United fans, those kind of things. But it is really important. You got guys are there and they bring in their fans. A lot of people do it just to grow viewership. I do it because I want to bring good content. So I will wholeheartedly take that on board. Mark, while I know this is a United channel in general, would love a show about your other interests, mixes in UFOs, etc. Do you know, Trevor? It's always in the back of my head to do that. And these coaches' voices shows are the ones where that can come in. So keep an eye out for when I've got to plan coaches' voices, because that conversation can go in those directions, because it doesn't need to be about the football at that point. My takes on UFO, ancient history, and things I've personally studied creates who I am as a person, right? But then that creates what I think about sport, what I think about mentalities and everything. And so it's always there. And I'm always willing to answer those questions. So if there's any questions you want to ask, or think of one major one you would like me to ask now, because I've got about 10 minutes left before I've got to get off. You know, got work in the morning. It is getting late, and this cold is killing my voice. But I'm always willing to talk about that stuff. Not a lot of people want to hear it because it sounds so far-fetched, but it doesn't bother me. If they don't want to hear it, they can ignore that section. But I just don't want to scare them away from the shows as well, Trev. I think if I had a United channel and then I randomly chuck up a show about Mount Pikachu, I always go called Pikachu. I can't roll my words today. But we could do the Egyptians, we could do the Mayans, we could do how deserts used to be rainforest, how the Antarctica used to be a rainforest and it wasn't even frozen, but there was a polar shift, things like that. Absolutely, I can talk about that for hours, but it would lose me potential viewership on my channel, and it would bring in the wrong kind of people to the channel if they were up for it. So there is a reason why I don't do it. But right now, I don't mind answering the questions. Right, guys, I need to shut down. Yes, Jarvis, you can. Early start tomorrow. Oh, I know, mate. No rest for the wicked, right? I will catch you later as well. Big up, and I will see you soon. So come on then, Trev. Shoot me a big question. I'll answer it, and then we'll call it a night. I'm a little bit worried now. It's like giving Trevor a loaded gun with that. Drum roll, please, for Trevor's question. Guys, what I will say is I really appreciate everyone who stayed here till the end, especially while Trevor's trying to write probably a really bloody hard question, or he's Googling something. The next show obviously will be Friday night. Now, Friday nights might need to change. I have something in the pipeline, coaching-wise, which will, for one season minimum, could change what nights I'm available, and it's for a higher level team. So can't look a gift horse in the mouth. I've got to go have a conversation. I'm not going to do it this Friday, but next Friday I won't be able to do a show. So we'll probably go Thursday night. And going forward, I will let you guys know. Okay, so what is your thoughts on the... I hope you mean the pyramids of Giza. What are my thoughts on them? Oh, God. Trevor, that is one hell of a long question. Okay. Due to AI and a lot of other things, there has been a lot of misinformation put out about the pyramids over the last, I'd say, 10 years. And when we talk about AI has been around since you started Googling responses. Google is an AI, yeah? It's not a human. You're asking a question. You're asking a computer. That is artificial intelligence. But right now, there has been reports of big cylinders with coils wrapping around them to big square boxes underneath, because there was a radar scan done from space that showed this, that can see through rock and clearly map out this. I have quite a lot of skeptical takes on that, but the pyramids themselves, they're not Egyptian. They were there before the Egyptians. And the reason I can say that is, if you go to the riverbeds and you go to back towards the top of Egypt, out into the Mediterranean, there's Egyptian. The water level came up, and there are harbors and that under that, and they've been found, and you can look that up. That's factual. So the water levels come up, which also means water level would have, or ground level would have been different. Sand is generated from rock that wears down over time. We all know about the big impact, the so-called Big Bang, if you like, or the comets that wiped out and caused the Ice Age, all of that sort of stuff. I think the pyramids existed prior to what we know as general history. I think they were a point that basically civilization rebuilt themselves around. They are not alone. There's Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, which is basically being dug up, or being prevented from being dug up, as it should be, because people are scared that if it rewrites history, all those grants, all that money going back to business would disappear, because they will prove their whole, what they had proven to be true would now no longer be fact. If you're inside of pyramids, if you've ever been lucky enough to go and see them, there's no hieroglyphs. There's no right or wrong reasons in them. They don't make sense. And what you find, and may have even done yourself, you ever found a cave and written on the wall? Of course you have. Chalk on the beach, on the floor. Everyone does it. They leave their mark somewhere. And that's what the Egyptians done. If you look at all the hieroglyphs and repurposing of the Sphinx and things like that, I feel that if you don't know the name, it's probably the most common one used. Graham Hancock's take on an ancient civilization that's been forgotten about is probably the closest thing to the truth. I don't necessarily believe Atlantis as a flying race and things like that, but Atlantis definitely existed, but it could have been ground, not like what we've been grown up. And I believe the pyramids are all linked to that as well. So, like I said, I could talk about the pyramids for hours because there's so many different takes. But what I would say about the pyramids of Giza is they are not the only ones on the planet. There are multiple sites around the planet that are identical, all aligned to north. They are not meant to be able to communicate with each other. So how can they be built in the same way? We could go to South America, Egypt, Russia, and yeah, it's all the same. Pyramids are an anomaly, as in fairness, they are symmetrically perfect. And where was the machines to lift the boulders? Even if you go one step further than that, Trevor, the measurements, spot on. Yeah, absolutely. To the millimeter. We can't even carve with what we know they had available to them material-wise. So that says they either had better things than what we know of, but we can't find them, which makes no sense, or they were built before the people living there. So therefore, knowledge is lost and knowledge is gained, right? We all went to school, and that's how we get our knowledge. We get our knowledge from books. If there was no books and if there was no teachers, we would all be cavemen still, right? You would only know what you know and nothing else. So that's why I say the pyramids were built before. We were in a quickest way to put this. If you go through all ancient religious texts, they all talk about a flood. It doesn't matter if you're in South America, North America, China, Egypt, whether you're in Europe and you're looking at what the Italians look at with their gods, or if you look at the Greek gods, you look at the Egyptian gods, you look at Christianity and all Hinduism, they all talk about a flood. They all talk about a survivor of a flood. You all talk about general knowledge being stored, taken somewhere and survived, and then population will be rebuilt. We know it's a story of Noah and the ark, right? Because that's what we were preached at school. Basically, an ark is where knowledge was kept to survive. We now call them time capsules. We can bury stuff under the ground for later generations to find, right? We send them out into space. I believe one got sent to the moon. If you think about the Ice Age, the whole planet was frozen and people would not have stood still. They would have gone looking for food. They would have followed the sun because that's all they would have had to have followed. They would have come down towards the middle of the earth, which is Africa. Egypt would have, as the planet is thawed out over millions of years, colonies move south like the birds do. Egypt, you would come across these. What the fuck is that? What? Whoa! I've never seen anything like that. And it's an anomaly. Actually, I can't say it today. It's something you've never seen. You can't describe, but you can steal the gold off the top because it's a shiny object and humans are magpies. So we don't even see the pyramids as they were built because they've been robbed. They've been worn away over thousands of years. So there was obviously a civilization way more advanced than we have ever been. Maybe that's why they call, or what they call, aliens. Well, everything. See, aliens is a terminology. Oh God, we're really going on to one here, Trev. Aliens is terminology, same as UFO, unidentified flying object. Every plane that is in the sky was a UFO at some point when testing, right? It was unidentified until it was identified. Same with people. There are tribes in the Amazon who have never had seen a television. You know, they are still hunter gatherers because they never had to come out of there and they just stayed contained, right? So it's possible to happen. If you were to have a catastrophic event with a meteor wiping out, freezing the planet, most people die off. But what dies off with them? Knowledge. Okay. Then we have to find knowledge. Now, we have computers, which is probably the worst way we can store any kind of knowledge. Pen and paper will last longer. They use clay tablets, a solid substance that wouldn't break. They kept in caves, buried underground in chambers, things like that. They were smarter, but that also means they knew about apocalypses, that things would come, destroy, and we rebuild. And that's pretty much what I would say about that. Yes, they were robbed and pillaged. Yeah, exactly that. Okay, so the pyramids are an unknown force, but there's many an unknown thing on this. You used to talk about the eight wonders of the world. We've got the statues down near Australia. It eludes me. I'm tired now, so it eludes the actual names. We've got Bolivia and places like that. Bolivia's got a fully grass covered pyramid. Mexico has got a pyramid built on top of a pyramid. And you can't explain why. But all their gods that they preach to are identical around the world, going back to very similar time frames. They also wear very similar wristbands with a little circle with what looks like a flower or a star with it in them. Yet we call it a watch. It's not a bracelet. It is a strap with a circle on it. It looks like a watch. Sounds mental, right? We all joked last night when you were on the show, what would I do if I went back in time? That's how easy it would be. If time travel was a thing, that's the kind of thing that you would expect to see, right? A watch on someone or a ring. People will survive. People find a way to survive. They create an arc. They create knowledge. We find it. If you want my biggest conspiracy theory, the knowledge was on this planet and still is on this planet, and it is contained within the vaults of the Vatican. It was found in ancient Sumeria, which predates Egypt. That ended up in Alexandria, and Alexandria was obviously burned to the ground and attacked in the Crusades. Okay, the Crusaders went there to try and get the knowledge, but I feel that it was already taken by the Catholic Church, and that is why the Vatican is its own country and has its own thing. Because now no one can get to their knowledge, but we know there's shit down there no one's ever seen in their Vatican vaults. We have the Knights Templar, and if you actually look back through time, the Knights Templar pretty much has become different cults. We joke about the Illuminati, but you could go with the Masons, things like that. Very, very similar. And through history, the Crusades ended up in France, which and Portugal, and can be linked back to Columbus. Columbus went obviously over to South America. What did he take with him? Blah 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 blah. Quite literally, the rest is history. But I think there was a knowledge, and I don't think it's lost. I think there was a saying: those who control the knowledge control the narrative, and it's very true. The Rothschilds control the world. That's a different story. I'm not getting into that now. But they made a very strong statement once about banking in America, that they backed female workers for women's rights because they saw it as an opportunity to make more money, because the more women that went to work, the more people they could earn tax off of through the banking system. Fucking great business. I'll tell you what, if the Rothschilds aren't the actual grandparents of the Glazers, I would be very, very surprised, because that's pretty much what they've done to Man United, right? Look at the Mariana Trench. Well, we can't. The deepest part of the ocean. What is down there? Maybe we will never know. Maybe we will never know. And it's so deep, yet it does not go into the Earth's core. People do not realize how deep the Earth is. And that's where people chuck out distances, and you're like, it's literally nothing. It literally is nothing. The Rothschilds are worth some money, and money rules the world. Exactly. The Rothschilds literally control pretty much most things when it comes to money. And they keep their name out a lot of things, but they can go back hundreds of years with that. So that is what it is. Right. I'm going to wrap the show up there, Trev. I hope you enjoyed that little insight into the pyramids. The pyramids is just one aspect of the world. Like I say, there are the 8 wonders of the world, the originals, the Colossus of Rhodes, things like that, the Great Wall of China, which none of it makes sense. But I think they're all linked. One of my biggest takes, and one of the things that I looked into, I think there was some kind of race or cultural sort of surviving people that took building knowledge around the world, and all of this was built by the same people. And that's why we can't find the tools. That's why we can't find the answers, because if it was all built by similar people, that would explain why you're like, but they thought the world was flat. They thought they'd fall off if they sailed the ocean, they'd fall off the end at the horizon, right? They had no idea there was other countries, but yet they had the same thing. But if someone did manage to go around from place to place, which is spoken about in the Bible that Jesus did, just got to put that out there, that he actually visited places like China and stuff. Who knows? Who knows? Great chat, Mark. Love this little segment. Well, that one's just for you, Trevor. That segment is just for you. And we'll do it again sometime. But for now, I'm going to shoot. I am back Friday night preview for our penultimate game against Forest. It's going to be the biggest nothing game out there. Forest have got nothing to play for now. United have nothing to play for. Bring on the kids. That's what I say. But we can't, because they've got games to win. Have a good night, Trev. Sleep well. And I'm going off to bed. Take care.